As much as possible. And then I'm gonna, okay. So, again, I am Micah Carl, and I'm with Infant Toddler Services of Riley County, and I am here to talk about foster care, or just information on foster care and where we experience some breakdowns in foster with our little people that are in foster care. How the protective factors that are researched play into that, and then hopefully a few strategies that you could utilize as you are working with children with who are in foster care. I want to just take a little moment to talk about, just introduce a book that I really resonates with this presentation, called It Takes a Village by Jane Cohen Fletcher. And it's about a little boy and girl who go with their mom to the village market, and the little girl is supposed to take care of her brother, who gets lost in the market. And as the little brother goes around to the different village businesses, each village business person ends up taking a part in the care of this little guy to ensure that he is well fed, he gets to sleep, he gets to be entertained. And so at the end of the book, she says, we don't raise our children by ourselves. It takes a village to raise a child. And that resonates quite true especially for our little kids that are in foster care. When we just have one person holding their story, it doesn't seem to translate to all the other situations that they're in. And so we really are relying on CASA and on early intervention and on doctors and foster families and bio families to really support that kid in having him or her continue to develop. So the question I have for you is, how would a child feel if everyone stopped communicating? And I want you to think about that as we walk through this presentation. What happens when no one's communicating with that child, with the people around to support that child? And this is a 90-minute presentation, so I'm trying to squeeze it to 45 minutes. So the purpose, we are going to look at those breakdowns, we're going to look at protective factors, and then we're going to look at some strategies. So as we start going through this presentation again, I want you to think about who holds the child's story. When we have children who are going from one foster placement to the next, some of these kids may have 3 foster placements in a year. We have providers that have to leave, they go on to another job. So different people come in and out of their lives, and their story starts to get lost. So the question is as children go into foster care, who holds that child's story that can go with him or her? We're just going to go back for just some relationship building of the brain, and kind of understand some of the brain structure on how the brain works on relationships and how it grows based on relationships. So by age 3, a child's brain is almost 80% of the adult size. But what matters is not really the size of the brain, but it's the connections. So we have all these connections that are in the brain, and as the relationships are connecting, the connections in the brain are also growing and making connections, and the brain is weeding out connections that it doesn't need to be more efficient. And so we need to keep that in mind as we are looking at these relationships with our foster kiddos. So every smile, every word, every shared routine wires that brain for learning and regulation. And so we look at the birth to 3 population. When we ask what the curriculum is for children at this age, we say the relationships are the curriculum. That's what guides the brain in the learning for that age. Let's see. Okay. The other thing that we just need to keep in mind are the safety, learning, and attachment. So with infants, attachment circuitry, and there are some spell issues here, programs the emotional and cognitive part of the brain. And that was researched, and that was also Sullivan and Perry put that in their research in 2007. When stability shatters the child's brain switch from learning to survival mode. So when we start taking kids out of their homes and the stability is unstable and they don't know what's going on, their brains can't focus on learning because they are looking at trying to figure out survival. With that, behavior changes are seen, but but we're not looking at it as being defiant. These are the child's nervous systems trying to find out a way to be safe. And so what we know is that warm, predictable interactions strengthen those neural circuits and help that attention and executive function. And so those are key things to keep in mind, because when we're trying to work on teaching and learning, when we have unpredictable interactions, the child's brain is in a fight or flight mode, and they're not really focused on that attention and learning capability. So what we start seeing when it's unpredictable is that we see toxic stress. And when we have prolonged toxic stress, the stress response, and we don't have the adult to buffer that stress response, so the brain architecture does change. And so when we see children in foster care and they're being moved frequently, they don't have that adult buffer to help supersede the stress responses that they have in their brain. And so we want to keep that in mind as we start looking at these breakdowns. So what I want you to think about doing is just think about a child that you're seeing right now that's in foster care, and maybe even jot down who is in that child's circle, that child's village. I think, okay. And so we have a child, I'm going to present a child, and it's a child that is a different name than what I'm not disclosing that information. And then this child, I'm going to try to use different scenarios within this fictional child of situations that I've experienced. So I'm going to call my child Maya. And with Maya, she had 3 different foster care placements within the first 9 months of her life. She had 4 different DCF workers within that, within, I would say, probably 6 months. We've had 3 different DCF workers. Because she also lived one in Topeka and then came to Manhattan, she had different early intervention providers that worked with her, different doctors. And luckily, this child had a CASA worker. And so the CASA worker was very, very helpful. So who else needs to belong in that child's circle? And so it might be a mental health provider, and it might be the bio family needs to be a part of this group. the post foster family, and now foster families should probably be in this village to help with that predictability and stability of the child. So when systems stop talking, the child becomes the messenger. So in Maya's situation, when each time she moved, a piece of her story was left off. And so communication, we see the communication broke down, and what we'll see is situations that affected the breakdowns in Maya. And I'm going to wait until we get to the breakdowns. Okay. And okay, so the breakdowns that we have, and I lump them into three big categories: relationship breakdowns, communication breakdowns, and administrative breakdowns. With relationship breakdowns, we can see the constant turnover and unequal coaching. And so because turnovers break down relationships, and when there's unequal coaching, so with early intervention, if early intervention is working with foster family but not with bio family, then there's unequal coaching there. So that there is a relationship breakdown. Communication breakdowns, we have communication silos. So doctors might not be talking to each other, therapists might not be talking to each other. DCF is talking to one person but not the other person. Missing records, we have each time a child moves, the record that is being followed with that child may not be sent to the next group of people. So then we have to start over again trying to figure out what's going on. And then transition gaps. And those are just if a child needs special education services and they're turning 3, if they start having court and they move to another location right around the time when we start that transition, there's a gap there, because if we don't have the communication, people start over again. So systems aren't talking to each other. And then the administrative breakdowns would be misaligned timelines and transition gaps. And we're going to go through each one really quickly. I'm looking at my time. So we have breakdown 1, constant turnover. So an example would be that for Maya, we had lots of different turnover. We had 3 different DCF workers within a 6-month period. So we never knew, as a therapist, I never knew what the names were of the DCF workers were, because they always changed. But then we also had different providers, early intervention providers, that were different, because Topeka had different providers than Manhattan. And so there was a turnover there. What we do know is that annual caseworkers turn over an average of 30 to 40%, undermining the trust and continuity of the service. And so when we have one provider that the DCF provider leaves, then the next person that takes on is starting fresh again. Each placement change can set back a development by 6 months or more. And that's just because the communication, the relationships are not there. And then what that happens to the child is that the delays may be, as an adult, we can handle those, but for the child who needs stability, predictability, and trust, it takes away that set person that they're used to seeing, and having to build trust again with the next person who might leave. Breakdown 2 is communication silos. So even a 3-month coordination delay can cost a child about 10% of the lifetime learning. And what we can say is that for a child that's 2 years old or 2.5, that's working on transitioning to the next phase of education, that getting back to where we're at when they move is a lifetime of it just is half of their life. And so we want to make sure we want to try to cut those delays in half so that we can help support those kiddos. So the impact is that when agencies work in isolation, the child falls through the cracks. And so if we don't have that clear communication, it does affect those developmental factors that we see when the child is having tantrums at daycare or getting kicked out of daycare. Disrupted routines. So for Maya, she was learning she was having some feeding issues. And so having Topeka was putting in a feeding routine in place to help with her feeding issues. And then when she moved to Manhattan, the foster family was unaware of the feeding routines that were being in place that were working. Us as early interventionists were not aware of some of the changes that were going on. And when they started reintegrating with the parent was unaware of the routines that were taking place because of, and so what we end up with is unpredictable routines, which then results into the trust and the learning issues that our little people are trying to struggle with. Predictable routines are not extras. They're what holds that emotional and cognitive growth. And so when we have those predictable routines, then we are helping that child succeed. Misaligned timelines, even brief service delays can cause learning loss. And so with infant toddler services, we start a transition plan 6 to 9 months before a child turns 3. So when we have court issues or the child is moved during that time, it does affect the referrals that we have. It can delay what we can provide, and then it can affect that learning. And so what we know based on National Research Council in 2015, referrals to needed services of over 60 days can predict poor language outcomes. And the impact, calendar time is not a child time. Adults are on a calendar time, but every child, the child is not on that calendar time. And so every time we have a delay, we can lose a milestone. Unequal coaching. This is a big one. So with Maya, when she was in Topeka, her biological mom lived in Manhattan. And so Topeka was working with the foster family, but the connection to the bio mother was not supported because of the distance. And so what we find is that foster families are usually getting the coaching and the facilitation, while the bio families are not, which is kind of mind-boggling, because if we're trying to work on reintegration with the biological family, then they really should be the ones that are getting that support so that they can start learning how to support their child. Foster families should also have it, but both families should be getting the same coaching. And so that is confirmed with research that when parents receive trauma-informed care during visits, they can get positive reunification is doubled and the attachment behaviors are improved. So we really do need to focus on those bio families, a little bit more than what I think early intervention or anybody is really doing. The impact coaching needs to reach every adult in the child's world, not just some, so that we can be consistent and predictable. 6 missing records. This is a key one. So with Maya, she went to a neurologist in Topeka and had some suggestions and some medical intervention type things that were suggested. However, when she moved over to Manhattan, those medical records were not accessed. They were unaware. Foster family was unaware that those happened, and so those never did get to the foster family. And what we know, and this is verified with research, that nearly 60% of children in foster care have incomplete medical records, which leads to fragmented and duplicative care, which is not helpful. And so portable health and developmental summaries can improve this, and the impact, if we keep records with the child, it's not paperwork, it's protection, so that everyone is on the same page. And the last one is transition gaps, and I kind of made reference to this, and this is a big one. Currently, and this isn't Maya's situation, Maya has the similar situation, but we have a child right now that is working on reintegrating with their family. We have to do a transition plan by the end of January. And every time the provider, my staff person, schedules a transition conference with the preschool, it turns out to be a court date. So it's been twice. She's had to try to schedule it 2 times, and both times were court appearances. So they had to cancel and reschedule. When we have a lot of gaps in these transitions, it does affect the educational supports that child can get. And the impact goes to transitions are dangerous when they're unsupported. So if we can have supported handoffs, and that even goes with supported handoffs to moving children from foster family to bio family. When we don't have a plan, a transition plan for little kids, it ends up being scary. It ends up being unstable. It ends up being unpredictable, and they lose that trust, and they go back to their fight or flight protective brain versus accepting. So even with transitions with early intervention to preschool, but also transitions from foster family to bio family, those need to be well planned out and help supported so that children are knowing what's going on. So before we move on, the question for you to just think about is, where have you seen the cracks in your system, and what can be fixed first? So when you think about the little person that you have in the back of your head, where are those cracks that you're seeing? What are the breakdowns that you're experiencing with that child? Because I suspect that you're probably at least able to pick out 1 or 2 breakdowns. So we go to protective factors, and factors are what we think of them as the support beams. They are what what kids need to help so that they can become more resilient in this situation. And there are 5 of them. So we have parental resilience, social connections, and knowledge of parenting and child development, concrete supports in times of need, and nurturing and attachment. And we're going to try to go briefly. I might go a little over the 45-minute time. So what we know is that research shows that the presence of protective factors increases the child's well-being, helps families manage adversity, and directly lowers the risk of abuse and neglect. So, and these are I have 5. There are more than that, but those are the 5 that are usually referenced on how we can help support kids who are who are in these uncertain situations. And what we do know is that if we have one protective factor that can, that if we're providing at least one protective factor, that is a big, that can be a very big help in supporting that child in their navigating this life that they are in. So the first protective factor is parent resilience, and this is the capacity to stay steady under stress. And what we know is that our bio families who are usually probably in the most stressful situation. They may be based on their living situation. They have their children that are taken away from them. They're just in a situations that they need some help. So and they don't feel like they are very supported. So when early intervention or any of our people that are supporting this child are coming in, they're usually working with the foster family, but the bio family usually does not seem to have as much supports. All the people may not be supporting them. And what we know is that when parents are supported, children feel steadier. And so we as therapists or support people need to help support both foster and bio families in supporting this child so that they feel like they are supported so they can better focus on their child. Parent resilience is the parent's ability to recover, adapt, and keep showing up even though things are stressful. A regulated adult tends to create a regulated child. So if we have a dysregulated adult, we're going to have a dysregulated child. And so this protective factor is really honing in on that need for parents to have a support system that can help them build their resilience and support their child. Factor 2, oh, forgot that this was in there. Parents who I already kind of talked about that. So the next one is social connections. And that is where positive relationships that offer practical and emotional support lead back to helping support that child. And so connection, again, we go back to that relationship connection. Connection is prevention. So what we do see, what I have seen with the kids that I serve and with Maya's parent, she did not have she had no parents that lived here in Manhattan. She had no friends. She had no transportation. She did not have an ability to be able to get a job. And so she was disconnected from any kind of social connection there was versus, and so being able to help support the bio family and connecting with someone in the community really translates to helping support that child if that child is reintegrated in the parent's home. So Walsh 2003 states that relationship resilience is the capacity to rebound from adversity through connection and mutual support. We know that children in foster care with one stable, supportive relationship shows stronger emotional and educational outcomes. And I would probably translate that into if the bio family has at least one strong emotional connection with a person, that we could also see a stronger relationship and educational outcome for that child when they move back into that home. Loneliness and social isolation are as toxic to the health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, according to the National Academy of Sciences 2019. So with Maya's family, when foster mom and birth mom, when foster mom and bio mom began sharing updates, it wasn't just logistics, it was a connection, and it restored trust between the two of them. And so it gave the bio mom a means of a social relationship to support her child. Number two. Number three, knowledge of parenting and child development. And this is the understanding how children grow and what behaviors means. It's exactly what we know. Understanding child development so that you can support your child. So when adults know what's typical, they can see behavior as communication and not defiance. So with Maya, she did have behaviors, and with BioMom, initially before getting support, she would read those behaviors as being defiant, and just she didn't not wanting to respond to authority. But when we started teaching mom that these behaviors weren't necessarily defiance, but they were her communication on how she was feeling, the unsteadiness, the unpredictability that she was experiencing, her relationship and how she responded to Maya changed as well. Having knowledge of child development transforms the reaction for parents, and they can start reflecting on what the child's doing. So for Maya's caregiver, she understood. For the foster mom for Maya, foster mom was struggling with dropping Maya off at daycare. Maya didn't want to go. She was clingy, she was crying, she seemed just not regulated. And so working with the foster family, understanding the social mental infant mental health aspect of dropping Maya off at a third daycare, because Maya was kicked out of 2 other daycares. That cleanliness wasn't her trying to be defiant as well, but to understand that she's just not regulated, and she just doesn't trust what's going on because she doesn't know what to expect and what's going to happen next. Protective factor 4, this is access to giving concrete supports in times of need, access to resources that reduce immediate crisis. And again, these are if families can't support the things that they need, then they can't support their child. So when basic needs are met, then they can focus their energy on connecting with their child. So for instance, with Maya's mom, because she had no transportation, she had no job, the court said that she had to get a job, she had to get transportation, but she had to have that, but no one was helping her try to find the resources to get it. And then if you talk to the DCF worker or talk to a foster family, their complaint was that the mom didn't want to do anything and she wasn't helping herself out. However, we have the unequal coaching, the unequal supports, and Maya's mom was unaware of some of the resources that were in the community. So being able to meet with mom and then help give her the resources to try to get a job and try to figure out transportation, that was the step that she needed so that she could stop worrying about the things that she needed and being able to worry about and support her child. What was also nice is that with Maya's foster family, they were able to also help with some of the supports for Maya's bio family, just to give that support so that she could really focus on the needs of her child. So just remember, basic needs met equals capacity to connect. And then the last one is nurturing and attachment. And those that are that is those consistent loving interactions that teach a child I am safe. So and these encompass all of the factors together when we are able to provide a child development understanding, when we're able to support the needs, the basic needs of the family, when we're able to give that social connection to the family, and when we're able to help build that resilience, then we see a stronger connection, a stronger attachment with that parent, with that child. For Maya, the attachment was built through repetition. And so the same, so with foster family was doing specific songs for bed. And so when she started transitioning to overnight stays with mom was aware of those songs that foster family was singing. And so she was able to use those same songs during the nighttime. And so it made it repetition. It made it where she predictable, and it allowed, and then Maya's mom also, they had the same blankie and sleeping things that Maya had for both setups. So she was able to have the same song, the same touch, the same situation, so that she could build that attachment with both the foster family, but also the bio family. And oh, good. We have just a few more minutes. So as you every time you show up consistently for a visit, you're strengthening the nurturing and attachment. You share updates with another provider, you're strengthening that social connection. When you coach the caregiver and you're building that knowledge in parenting and in child development protective factor. When you link a family to resources, you add that concrete support. And when you celebrate a child's strengths, you're building parental resilience. And so we're going to we have just a few more minutes, so I'm going to try to go with the strategies. And I might not. So what the first strategy is building consistency. So we want kids to have consistency, because we know that consistency helps them feel trust and feel confident, so they're not in that fight or flight mindset. And so what it looks like for consistency is that EI and teachers, we could share daily routine cards that allow all caregivers to follow. So what I'm doing when I talk to the teacher, they know what I'm doing, and I know what they're doing, so that we're all consistent. Foster families can keep identical bedtime words or songs used by birth parents. So finding out what the birth parents use and trying to use the same type, i.e. if you think about Maya's attachment with the same song, bedtime song, with both locations. Case managers and CASA, which a shout out to CASA workers, verify routine notes and move with placement files. So that would be a big one. And I have to say the CASA workers seem to be the best at this part, but just making sure that our notes that we take are consistently moved to the next group of people. And then medical providers ask parents about daily routines before recommending behavioral plans. Sometimes we recommend behavior plans, and that's not really what we need. We just need security. strengthening communication. I think this is a big one. We want to make sure, like, having a one-page child snapshot every quarter would be helpful so that everyone can kind of see what's going on. And that should move with the child. I know that we have a big binder that kids have that go to each foster family, but I don't think there's a habit where foster families actually fill that out as consistently as to be helpful. Case managers scheduling 10-minute agency huddle meetings monthly, or having a text group that you can just kind of text each other about how things are going. CASA workers can record strengths in the report and not just concerns. Medical providers can send brief developmental updates to EI teams, and teachers can use a consistent log for communication. And honestly, those are helpful, but I really do think, and this isn't something that we can change ourselves. This would have to be a collective to help to go with the state. But there are apps nowadays that DCF, that other states have, that can be accessed through with bio family, with foster family, with all the community partners that are supporting the child, that can we can put in pictures of the children growing. We can have communication logs so everyone can kind of be on the same page to see what's going on. Kansas doesn't use it, but it's kind of, think of it as the daycares have the little apps that parents can get to see how their child's doing during the day. They do have some apps now for kids in foster care. Empowering all caregivers. We want to make sure that joint coaching sessions for both foster and birth families. We want to include caregivers. Oh my gosh, there's so many spelling errors. Include both caregivers in progress meetings. CASA may ask what strategies helped at home this week and share it with whoever else that they're connecting with. Medical and therapy teams can use shared language and comfort connections. And foster parents can model nurturing responses with bio families, so that and record short videos for biological families to view so that they can have a connection. And then last is just transition early and thoughtfully. So just making sure that transition folders are, you start doing transitions a lot earlier before exit. So that people, because it might take a long time, and we might have hiccups with reschedules. Case managers holding warm handoff meetings. So where the person that is not going to be seeing that child is able to connect with the new person, or have some kind of little write-up to let them know what went on if they're not going to be able to have a warm handoff. Foster parents can make photo books for people for new placements, so that the child can be prepared of what to expect. Medical providers can share developmental summaries, and CASA can ensure transition checklists include emotional and developmental needs, not just the paperwork checklist. And I think that's it. Yeah, so we want consistency equals predictability, communication equals shared information, empowerment equals aligned caregivers, and transitions equal continuity of growth and care. And some of the examples here would be like the child snapshot. You could have a quick little thing like this that everyone can write, and it can go with the child so that people know what's happening. So if they're going from one foster home to the next, they can it can be kind of a warm handoff so that the new foster family can kind of see what's going on and who's involved in their care. The other is just protective factors, resource connection. And I can I can send this if anyone is interested. It just gives you some ideas on things that can help with parental resilience and social connection, some different ideas on how to connect. So such as the parent-to-parent Kansas, grandparents, concrete supports, like what kind of things that might look at. And then the last one, the next one would be like daily routines and rituals. Again, when a child is moving to the next location, having an idea of what their different routines look like and what words that you use, what challenges or triggers might experience, and some ideas to keep it consistent so that everyone's on the same page to help that child transition to the next location. Here's just some comfort items for comfort ideas that kids might need to help with transition comfort items. It's not an extensive list, but just some ideas and so I think that's it. And we're not going to do this part. So